What is Pest Talks?
What is Pest Talks?
What is Pest Talks?
It's where leaders from all corners of the pest control world
come together to have continuous conversations
on trending topics.
Sure, our views may not all be the same,
but the passion that we have is what brings us all together.
Pest Talks is pest control, expertise, experience,
entertainment, social networking,
social media, and trending topics coupled with technology.
Listen in and join the conversation
from a pest management professional's perspective.
Good morning, Pest Talks from the West Coast. Happy Sunday. That's what day it is at the time of this message. And I'm in the back seat. Got baby Grace in her Dodger get up. Because she's dodging the drama, right? You're dodging all of the drama, all of the noise. Daddy's up there, Dodger hat. I'm the only one that's definitely not. I'm not wearing my Dodger colors, guys. I didn't get the memo. The trending topic: is pest control a necessity or is it a luxury? I think many people would say it depends on who you ask. I think that if you're a restaurant, it's a necessity, right? Because you're serving food and you want to make sure that you are on top of things in case a shipment comes in or something is brought in unknowingly and it turns into an infestation because you didn't have somebody coming on a monthly or weekly, bi-weekly basis. Now, in California, pricing for pest control has increased. I'm speaking for California. I don't know what everybody else's prices are, but everything here is more expensive. As inflation affected everybody else, it definitely affected our industry with the tools that we use and the things that we need to get the job done. We have found that lots of people here in our market do a lot of things themselves or try to eradicate the problem themselves. Or they may have had a company for quite some time that they're tired of, okay? They feel like, what am I paying you for? And they'll call us. And they learn that our pricing is most likely higher than the company they're currently paying for. And there's a reason for that, because if I'm not charging you up to a certain standard, you're gonna get that level of pest control. What you get is what you pay for, right? What you pay for is what you get. That's what I've seen in our beautiful industry. Now, I think for some people, it's a luxury because when you own a property, whether you own something that everybody else lives in, you have tenants, or it's your own property, there's all kinds of things you may need to pay for. A gardener, if you've got a garden, you've got a lawn, if you're not doing it yourself, electricity bills, utility bills, subscriptions like Netflix, Disney, and all these things that you may be paying for that pest control, you may be like, nah, I don't have any problems, so I don't need it. Until you do. Pest control, just to have it on a proactive basis, like a preventative basis, I think is a luxury because you are smart enough to know that I want pest control monthly at least, or bi-monthly, depending on where you live. I want pest control more often because I don't want to run into a problem that's bigger because I didn't have somebody coming on a regular basis. And now I got to pay more money to treat some type of an infestation. And that's with anything. That's mosquitoes, termites, like ants, anything that can get out of control. So I think it can be a luxury. We have and actually, he's somebody that just calls, case in point, he's somebody that does not want monthly pest control. He doesn't want to pay for it. And he has tenants. And I'll never forget when he called and he said, I got a tenant complaining about fleas. Ryan's already laughing because he goes, I got a tenant complaining about fleas. And, we have rats running around and the cats used to take care of the rats. Well, now there's too many rats.
He sounds like that.
And too many cats. And now the fleas are getting in the window screen. They're getting in the window in the unit that's right there where all of the rats are running around. And we're like, right, you need pest control. So now think about it. Had he just had monthly pest control, he'd have no rat problem. Thus, stray cat problem probably would have been solved because there would have been no food for them around. And now you got fleas though, and fleas are expensive. So for him, I know that person, pest control would be a luxury to him. Okay. But yet when I go into a restaurant and I don't see any pests anywhere, I go into a hotel and I don't see any pests anywhere, I don't see any problems, I know they get that it's essential. It's a necessity to their business, to their lifestyle, to their clientele. But some people, it's a luxury. And I'm like, yeah, the pricing of today I believe pest control is more of a luxury for the general population than it is a necessity. However, to public health, whenever you go somewhere and you look around and you don't see no problems, somebody has great pest control. Trust me, they're not doing it themselves. And that's my 2 cents. Can't wait to hear y'all. Bye.
What is going on, Pest Talk? Happy Sunday. I hope everybody's enjoying their weekend. For me, I would say pest control is definitely a necessity. And my reasons being, I remember when I first started in the industry, one of my service manager was like, after I finished my training, he was like, as of today, you are not just an exterminator, you are a public health protector. And then he went on explaining what that meant. Reason number 1, health and safety. So the work that we do, a lot of it is to protect the general public's health. So some of the pests that we treat for mosquitoes. Mosquitoes is a huge public health issue. So when you have a mosquito infestation around your property, it comes with a lot of disease. They carry a lot of disease. When you have things like ticks on your properties, when you have roaches in your home or in a restaurant, rodents, they carry a lot of disease. So pest control is definitely a necessity for a restaurant or a homeowner who is dealing with any of those pests because their livelihood are at risk. The second reason would be property damage. We treat for things like termites or any other wood-destroying insects like wood-boring beetles, carpenter ants, carpenter bees. All these pests are damaging people's home. I would say the majority of the population, one of their biggest investment is their home. Having a squirrel in your attic, that's causing property damage. Having a raccoon in your attic, raccoon also can possibly have rabies. So all that makes pest control a necessity. I saw your video earlier, Noel, and I do agree with you in terms of how when people are doing preventative services, how that can be looked as a luxury, especially in Cali or even in the East Coast. Certain areas are extremely expensive, even if you're just doing it for preventative. But to me, that would still not be a luxury because the reason you do preventative maintenance or preventative service is to avoid spending even more down the line dealing with more damage. So if you're treating for preventative for rodents, the reality is if you let the rodent get in first, you got to worry about the cleaning of the droppings and urine around your property. What if they do structural damage, chewing wires and things like that? That's more money you're going to have to come out of pocket because now you got to hire an electrician. It doesn't make it less of a necessity. It just means that some people can't afford it. Let's say you have mosquitoes on your properties. Let's say you can't afford the service to keep the population down. The alternative is you're running the risk of getting sick. Let's say you have roaches on your property. The alternative is a lot of respiratory illness comes with roaches. Let's say you have ticks on your property. The alternative is diseases or termites, for example. The alternative is you're running the risk of having structural damage, which would in turn cost you even more down the line because now you got to treat for the termites and get the damage fixed. With all those reasons, I would say absolutely no doubt that pest control is a necessity.
I love Noel and Evan's take on it. I definitely agree with both sentiments. I think that pest control is always and should always be a necessity. People do view it as a luxury and not a priority, as Noel stated. Sometimes they tend to put it at the back burner until something comes up and then they have no choice but to acquire services. Whereas they can just keep you on a maintenance and not necessarily have that problem. I think that's the better way to go. It's between budgeting and wanting to do it yourself. I think Evan said it well as well. Sometimes maybe they don't have the luxury to afford certain services, but on the flip side, sometimes you don't want to spend something you try to put away and budget for, and then you are forced to spend way more than you wanted to or needed to had you just maintained your service. And that happens a lot. A lot of times restaurants don't want to pay us, I feel, what we deserve, whether it's $200, $300, $400. I mean, that's, maybe a drop in the bucket. When they come out to do their letter grading, things like that, the inspectors come around, they get hit with huge fines. And then obviously they want the pest control operators to come out and help them clean it up, maybe service or generate a report, add equipment, things like that. So it can be costly. A good maintenance service program is always wise to have. You don't wait for something to break and then fix it. You keep it maintained so that you don't have to run into that situation. What we do too shouldn't be undermined. When it comes to food health and hygiene, we do have 7B, which is the food processing license you need in order to service restaurants and things like that in New York City. I definitely have my food processing processing license in addition to the structural, which is, obviously for industrial, commercial, and residential buildings. I'm going to go with pest control being a necessity most and foremost.
Yo, 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 yo. Ha! Yo, what's going on, PT family? Ash, Evans, and Noel, you guys all gave amazing perspectives. I believe that most people in our industry will see it as a necessity, but I'm gonna actually go with luxury. And here's my thinking behind that. Most people, when they see pest control, from what I've experienced, this is from my personal experience, is that pest control is not necessarily their first thought when it comes to their bills, when it comes to their budget. From my experience, a lot of them tend to prioritize other expenses. And when it comes to pest control, they tend to deal with it only as needed or when the problem arises. In their mind, it's not necessarily a necessity. It's a luxury. Can you see that? Think about that for a second. If it was a necessity in their mind, then they wouldn't put it on the back burner. But if it's a luxury in their mind, which I believe it is for most of the people, then they would actually have pest control monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly. They would have it ongoing. But they would look at it as, oh, I can afford that. So I believe the biggest decision-making factor to this trending topic is somebody's financial resources. Somebody could say in our industry, well, they should have pest control no matter what their resources is because their house could be infested with all of the bugs that can infest, whether it's rodents, roaches, bed bugs. But guess what? People, in my professional opinion, from what I've seen, are not really thinking about it until they have to. So that doesn't make it a necessity for them. It makes it a necessity for us because we're in the industry. But when you're talking about people that are not in the industry, for the most part, it's not a necessity. That's why this is such a complex, really good trending topic, because we're trying to bridge the gap of saying, hey, if we can get people that are not in the industry to think like those in the industry, then they would take pest control from being a luxury to being a necessity. I was laughing at the customer that Noel said that we have. He's cool, he's funny, but he's like old school, like, hey, can I pay you? And don't cash his check until I say on the 5th. Like one of those clients, like, hey, bro, you still paying in check, man? Can I get a Zelle? Anyway, it's like, when he would call us as needed. So in his mind, this is a luxury because I'm not going to pay for it monthly. Even though you are the owner of a property, sir, like it's a good idea to have it as a necessity, but that was his right. He can spend his money on whatever he wants to, but he didn't see it as a necessity. He saw it as a luxury. Of course, we see it as a necessity, right? In my opinion. But if I can say, yo, I'm gonna see this as a luxury, then I can actually empathize or have, I think, a better connection with the client. And then I can win them over to a necessity. And it doesn't always have to be because they had a major issue, right? You want to get them out of the mind of it being a luxury over to a necessity. But if they think of it as a luxury, then we have to think of it like a luxury so that we can bring them over into necessity, knowing that we know it's a necessity. I hope that made sense. It made sense to me, because now people can be thinking like, you know what? I agree. I haven't had pest control because I can't afford it, or I don't know how much it is, or I'm gonna take care of this instead. But if I see like, yo, this actually will, to Evans and Ash's point, save me from paying more in the long run if I have monthly pest control, then I'll never see a bug. I can actually have the contract negotiated that works in my favor, and I'll be good. But until then, they're gonna see it as a luxury. So we're gonna charge you as a luxury. I'm just saying.
David Brown.
Amanda.
Where are we at right now?
We are in beautiful Palm Springs. Oh. We are here representing the NPMA's 30th anniversary for Academy. Team Green, Team Pink.
Since I am the storytelling reporter over here, is pest control a luxury or is pest control a necessity?
I think it depends at what part of life you're currently in. At different times, it can be either. It also goes into the tolerance of the person and how far they're willing to deal with that pest. Some people, they'll deal with the bed bugs or roaches or whatever the case would be because it's not that big of a deal for them. But they reach a threshold where they're like, this is too much. And that becomes a necessity. I need to get pest control to get rid of this. When you have a necessity, it becomes something that you literally need. Luxury is just something that you can
is available
with
to you.
or without.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But
It's
also,
it's the value of the work. How much you value that.
I think everybody needs pest control at a certain
Well,
point, right? Like
everybody needs it, but not a lot of people know they need it.
that's it. Not a lot of people know that
No.
they need it because they're not privy to the things that we're looking at. You know, they're not trained like a PCO would be
Right.
to look in these areas where they know that there's activity. So until they see it, they don't need it. And then when they see it, it becomes something that they need.
But I really think it comes down to our job. And I know we're speaking to everybody as a whole, and hopefully a consumer or somebody who isn't aware of what we do can hear this. What we do, like education is so important as people in the industry to be able to have the messaging in open, honest conversations with, say, my mom, or my sister or my best friend, somebody who doesn't know. For us to have that awareness and to be taught at places like this as a full circle moment, and to be in groups like this and to know people of how to communicate that educational piece, why it is a necessity.
What's going on, Pest Talk? That's how we take care of these hornets. I'm about to just apply something of repellent to keep them from rebuilding the nest. I just wanted to show you guys.
Evans, I would say that hornet job you did is definitely a necessity because I ain't trying to get stung. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, dude.
Good afternoon, Pest Talk family. Ryan, great response. Alex, really good perspective. Ash, yeah, everybody had really good things to say, including the duo, Amanda and David. I basically had a question for you guys. What makes something a necessity or a luxury? If you can't afford something, does that make it a luxury? Because that's the one example that I noticed you guys are using, saying for the people that can't afford it, then that would make pest control a luxury. So my argument to that would be, for example, if somebody asks you, is clean drinking water a necessity? Your answer would always be yes, because the alternative to that would be, if you don't drink water or clean water, or if you don't drink water at all, you die, right? But if you don't have access to clean water and you're drinking water that is not considered clean, the alternative is you can get sick and it shorten your lifespan. So that instantly make clean water a necessity. But guess what? There are people out there that literally can't afford clean water in this country. Would that basically make clean water a luxury? No, it would still be a necessity. Just because you can't afford it does not make it a luxury. It's still a necessity. You just can't afford it, which is a different conversation. My question to you guys, just because somebody can't afford something, does that make it less of a necessity? Or is that a different conversation to be had in terms of whether something is affordable or not? But to me, pest control is still a necessity. Yes, there are certain pests that we treat for that are just a nuisance. For example, earwigs, since we've been talking about that since last week, earwigs would be considered a nuisance because it's not carrying any disease and it's not causing damage to the home. So if you can treat for it because you don't like it, you don't want it in your house, so that would make it, it's optional. But the majority of pests that we treat for, if you don't get rid of them, usually they'll cause you some type of issue. Mosquitoes, for example, the deadliest living organism known to man because of how much disease it carries. If you have an infestation of mosquitoes and you don't take care of it, essentially you're opening yourself up to diseases. Same goes for ticks. If you have an infestation of ticks, you don't take care of it, guess what? You're risking Lyme disease, which could essentially kill you. So the alternative to not treating for ticks is your health. So to me, that makes treating for ticks a necessity. Now, whether you can afford it or not, that's a different conversation. But we're just talking about how important it is to get rid of that problem. And same goes for bed bugs. Same goes for a wild animal in your attic. You can delay the treatment, but the longer you delay it for, the more likely something worse tends to happen. Healthcare is a necessity, but not everybody can afford it. But the majority of things we treat for, it's necessary to get rid of them, or else it's going to cost you a lot more in the long run.
Yo, I'm back. Evans, I just saw your response, Marco Polo, to the trending topic. So, what I did was I went to the definition because I admire your point. about the financial aspect of things. So, the definition of luxury is a state of great comfort or elegance, especially when involving great expense. Necessity, something that is essential, indispensable, or required. A condition or item that is needed for survival, function, or success. So, is pest control a luxury or a necessity? So if we're not talking finances, based on the definition, in my opinion, on this definition of both of these, pest control is definitely a luxury because it's not required that you have it. It's not necessarily essential that you have it, right? You can get along without having it. You can function if you don't have it. So necessity is something that is essential, indispensable, or required, a condition or item that is needed for survival, function, or success. Luxury, a state of great comfort or elegance, especially when involving great expense, meaning that pest control, in my opinion, is a luxury. I love the way you talked about water, because definitely we need water to live, but water and bugs are not on the same plane. Nice try, brother. Nice try, brother. What you got?
So the family that cannot afford the basic needs that they got, maybe they're struggling on rent, utilities, and all that stuff, I think for them, that would be a luxury. If you're talking to restaurants, it's definitely a necessity.
Pest Talks, Pest Talks, Pest Talks. We have David here,
Hi.
and we are sitting here by the pool, and I am with my mother.
Hello.
What do you think of the episodes?
Amazing information. Must watch.
Must watch, guys. We got amazing information and must watch.
Ryan, actually, I really like your response in terms of it being a luxury. Now that you put that in perspective, yes, you can survive without it. We never had pest control. And I just remember growing up, the biggest thing that we dealt with was ants. And in Michigan, it's mosquitoes for sure. And earwigs. Gotcha. Yeah, I thought I was about to say it.
Hey, what's going on, Pest Loss family? I've heard a lot of responses. A lot of responses, and initially, Evans, your point of view actually made me change my mind a little bit. But then I started hearing Alex's point of view, just put it in a different perspective for me. So the conclusion I come to right now is this. Pest control is both, definitely both, a luxury and a necessity. But if anything, it's more of a luxury because, like Ryan was saying, it's to some degree, when you have some type of pest issue, you can live with it. People live with mice. Now, we all know as a health issue, it's not great. Having roaches health-wise is not great, but people live with it. You can live with these things, to be honest. We all know that. But it only takes a certain level of financial affordability to address the issue. That's one level. But then the next level above that is people who are on our reoccurring or monthly contracts. There is a level of privilege and luxury enabled to do that. Even though, yes, like I said, it is a necessity. There is a level of luxury to it. And they also have to consider the fact that most people who are paying this luxury, it's more about their emotional and mental well-being. And there's no price on that. That's where it differs to me. There's no price on that. I'm pretty sure we all have that client that is super scared of a specific bug. And we being there calms their nerves, give them peace of mind, allow them to just be comfortable in their home. So the fact that we're able to go in and do that without an issue, we're helping them psychologically and emotionally to address the issue that they just don't want to deal with. And I feel like the world and the time that we're living now, a lot of it is that that's what we're paying for. We're paying for comfortability. We're paying for to be comfortable on the plane. That's why people have first class. You're paying for, you go into a restaurant to have a certain experience. We all can go to the corner Chinese store in New York, and if you're in New York, you know what I mean. You can go to deli, get a chopped cheese sandwich, and fill your belly. But it's a completely different experience when you go to a high-end restaurant. That's a luxury to be able to sit down and do that. And the time that we're living in, people are paying for that type of thing, and they want that type of experience and comfort and so on and so forth. So overall, paying for pest control and having pest control is a luxury because of the financial component. But we all know it is a necessity. I met a person the other day that he told me as a kid he had the hantavirus. And as you know, the hantavirus is something you can get from rodents, and it's a cousin to the coronavirus. He told me it was very, very bad. It was really, really bad. And, people who, either trigger the asthma or they get asthma because of roach infestations. So we know these are health issues that can come about. So there is a level of necessity behind it. But overall, I would say it's a luxury. Truth of the matter, it is a luxury.
What's interesting about this is that I don't think that all insects and rodents that are on your property are pests. And I'll give you guys a quick example. If a spider is out in the garden, probably not a pest, right? In fact, he's probably doing some pest control. He's probably doing some good out there. But that same spider inside your house on your pillow right before you go to bed at night, definitely a pest, right? A carpenter ant that's making Swiss cheese out of a fallen tree back in the backside of your property, probably not a pest. But that same carpenter ant who's making Swiss cheese out of the foundation of your house, definitely a pest. A mouse that's hopping through the lawn, maybe not a pest. But that same mouse that's in your pantry, that's chewing through cereal boxes, definitely a pest. A hornet that's in a nest 30 feet up in a tree, probably not a pest. But that same hornet in a nest that's sitting in the eave of your house right outside your front porch, probably a pest. So there's this threshold where insects and rodents go from just being insects and rodents to becoming actual pests. And as pest management professionals, we have to understand what that threshold is for all of our individual customers. And sometimes certain customers have very low and very high thresholds depending on what their preferences are. So we kind of have to accommodate based on what they want. And it's interesting to me because the difference between a necessity and a luxury, in my mind, protecting your home from pests, right? They've hit that threshold. Protecting your home from pests, protecting your family, protecting your property, that is a necessity, right? You need to do that. Otherwise, bad things will happen. Discomfort's going to happen. Damage to your house is going to happen. However, whether you do it or whether you have a professional do it, in my mind, is a difference between whether it's a luxury or not. In theory, you can do the inspection work, you can do the exclusion work, you can creep around the house, you can sweep down the cobwebs, you can granulate the lawn, right? You can protect your own home from pests. However, it might take you a significantly more amount of time, and the type of service that gets done might not be to the quality that if you had a professional come in and do it. So imagine you're just a typical person, you have a pest problem. All you have to do, pick up the phone, dial a number, schedule an appointment, and a verified professional will come to your house and do all the things I was talking about, right? The inspection, the exclusion work, taking care of conducive conditions, inside-outside treatment, sweeping down the cobwebs, taking out the wasp mist, granulating the lawn. The list goes on. And they're going to be able to do all of those things at a much higher degree of quality in a much shorter amount of time. And you can get all of that done without ever having to get up out of your chair. That, my friends, is a luxury. So pest control is a necessity, right? Protecting your home from pests, absolutely necessary. Who you have helping you protect your home from pests, that, I think, is what defines it as whether or not it's a luxury.
What's happening, PT? I just got done taking care of a bald-faced hornet nest and saw something real cool. So I'm going to flip the camera around for everyone to enjoy. So we've got some little bald-faced hornets here. Hopefully you can see them moving around, getting ready to come out and wreak just havoc on some people. What's happening, Pest Talks? Thought I had a great answer and I thought I had a great opinion formulated, and then I was listening to Ryan's explanation and the definitions and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was listening to Evans and I was like, wow, I so agree with that too. So I do think there's a financial obligation and a financial burden that could make it more of a luxury than a necessity. However, I also think that there's a threshold of how many bugs one's willing to deal with that could make the luxury into a necessity or the necessity into a luxury. For example, I've got a customer, had for many years, and so great people, but they've got some real phobias of insects. And so my staff see her every other week to service her home. For her, it is a real necessity. Money isn't a problem, but she does not want to see as any bugs or as least as humanly possible. So we see her every other month. And so for her, it's a real necessity. And then I've got some customers that where money isn't an option at all, and they have zero problems in their house and have for 20 years. For those folks, it's probably more of a luxury than a necessity. So I think it's a great conversation. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer. I think it's complex. It could be situational. It could be financial, because I do know that when money gets tight with people, one of the first things that they tend to cut out of their budget is the pest control service. Now, as a business owner, that's not something that we like or like to hear. So you try to make yourself affordable, make yourself needed. But at the end of the day, if it comes down to buying school clothes for your children or putting food on the table versus paying the pest control man, you're probably going to cut out the pest control man. So that would make it more of a luxury. Great conversation. I agree with everything everybody has said. If I was leaning one way or the other and I had to make a distinct, clear decision, I think I would say it's more of a luxury than a necessity. However, I can see it both ways.
Good evening, Pest Talks. How are we? I'm loving where everybody's going, especially I agree totally with the health issues in the restaurants and how people in some situations can't afford pest control, but then for others, it's absolutely like no doubt in their mind, like they can add it to the monthly cost. So the way that I'm thinking about it is pest control industry as a whole, and that is absolutely 100% a necessity. Just think about it. If we all stopped doing what we are doing today, how out of control it would get. The bed bugs, the termites, the mosquitoes, the ants, the roaches, they would be everywhere. The rodents. New York, if we stopped what we were doing in New York, I don't know, the rodents might start living there more than the people, you know what I mean? So to me, I think is absolutely a necessity. Here in Virginia, it's not if you've got bug problems, that's when you're going to have bug problems, because 99.9% chance you're going to have some bug problems. So yes, I do agree with, not everybody can afford it and not everybody sees hiring a pest control as a necessity. And some people, definitely view it as a luxury. As a whole, there's a reason why pest control was started so long ago. The first company was founded back in like the 1600s. These people have been figuring out how to take care of these issues for a long time. So there's a reason why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing and why we're going to continue doing it. So let's go on and, take care of those pest problems, y'all. It is a necessity.